Welcome to the Flynn Effect podcast, where we dive deep into all things culture, industry news, and history, all with the goal of helping our clients to perform better. John Marianetti, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Katie Flynn.
I'm so excited to have you. I thought we could take a little trip down memory lane, if that's okay with you.
It's a little different for me to be on this side of the camera, so be patient with me.
I hope the red light doesn't make you too nervous.
It makes me nervous all the time.
I bet it does.
No matter what side of the camera I'm on. Yep.
Yeah, so you have been working at Flynn for, I think, over 20 years. Is that right?
21 years in April.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yes.
First of all. But you've also been working alongside the Flynn, so Kevin and Chris, for even longer than that, right?
Yeah, I was introduced to Kevin Flynn and Colleen probably 1988, 89.
Okay.
When they came to a company that I was working for called Telesis Productions to pitch us if we were interested in helping them produce a show called Homestyles. And so it was, I talk about it a lot, is that, now we have dedicated cable channels to this sort of content.
Sure.
But, in the late 80s, for this small advertising firm to create a show, a half an hour show that aired, I think, on Channel 8 at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Self-produced, not only the show, but all the commercial breaks in it.
Wow.
So it was a vehicle for them, for their existing clients, but sometimes we had to create new spots to put in there.
Yeah.
So they came to us with this idea that they wanted to do this Homestyles. And it was hosted by Colleen Flynn and Steve Hausman, legend in this community.
Absolutely.
And I remember them pitching us, and my boss was there at the time, and Kevin and Colleen left. And my boss said to me, "I'm not interested in this, but if you are, you can run with it."
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't know if this is going to take off or not, but I don't want to be the guy that said no."
Yeah.
So if it does, so, you seem to have a good relationship, and I think it would be great for you to do. And we did it. And I forget the exact numbers. 4 or 6 episodes they produced before they had to kind of pull the plug.
Sure.
And it was really kind of a sad thing because we had a ball.
Yeah.
And never did we ever roll our eyes or shake our head like, what are we doing? We were all in.
Yeah. All
in. We were behind them 110%, and we wanted it to succeed.
Right.
But in the 5 or 6 months or whatever that we shot, we had a ball.
Yeah. And to your point of it being ahead of its time, right? Extreme Makeover Home Edition is back. I don't know if you know, but it's with the Home Edit ladies. So they do all the organization. It's amazing. Yeah. I cry every single time.
I see it.
Yeah.
I watch it.
Yeah. But I do think that, pre-HGTV is what we're talking about. And it was essentially going into homes in the Rochester area, correct? Yeah. And touring them and speaking about the features.
We would go to, interesting homes, interesting architectural homes, the mushroom house at the Powder Mill Park, to a boat that this couple lived on, Lake Ontario. Yeah. I think that was the last shoot we had. We all went out on this boat. It was summertime. I don't remember shooting a whole lot, but we had a lot of fun on the boat because I think we knew that it was towards the end. Yeah. But designers, window and door people talking about, energy efficiency, architects, you name it, just how to paint, how to design. And so I remember, being at RG&E, talking to people there. So they had a lot of guests lined up, and it was way before its time. And it was interesting.
I have this picture in my brain that I'm not sure if I have this picture of my Aunt Colleen turning around on a staircase, which I don't know if I've just made this up.
No, you didn't make it up.
Yeah.
You didn't make
I must have seen it somewhere.
You didn't make it up. What I used to do to your Aunt Colleen, and because I was the shooter, I wasn't even directing. I think we were kind of co-directing. It was Kevin, an associate that he brought in on the project, but Colleen was the host. I was the director of photography. Sure. But, I helped direct because I had to kind of work through the edit as well. And we just had fun. We helped each other. But I would do this every shot to your Aunt Colleen, and she fell for it every time. I say, Colleen, can you just turn around? Just turn a little bit more, until she was completely facing the opposite way. And you hear her voice go, but you can't see me. And it never got old. And we were laughing. So, it's pretty fun.
Oh, I love it.
Fun.
Yeah, she's a riot, so I can only imagine.
Yeah. Chris wasn't involved as much because I believe he was still in college.
Yeah.
And so every once in a while he would show up. But I didn't really know him very well back then. It was just really Kevin and Colleen. But Chris was on camera talent at RC Shaheen talking about, the price of paint.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny.
I love it. Well, yeah, let's definitely dig some of that up. But to your point, you were working at a different company at that time, and you've been with Flynn now for 21 years. So how did that come to be?
To work at Flynn?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was working at this place called Telesys Productions. I left there in like 91. I worked 7 years for myself.
Wow.
And greatest gig, you work for yourself. It's very rewarding.
Sure.
But I left there. I closed down my shop to work at Post Central. And at the time, in probably 94 when they opened, and I think I joined them in 97, they were growing. And it was a post-production house. They had access to a film stage, audio, music facility, but the Post Central team had all the edit facilities, computer graphics and all that kind of stuff, animation. So it was not unusual. Post Central was named for a reason. Everybody worked there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't unusual to run into your competition, you run into your friends, and I would see Chris and Kevin. It would be, I'm editing in one room and they're right next door editing something else. So you see each other in the hallways, you see each other getting coffee, you talk. And so we always had this sort of mutual respect for each other. And I was there about 7 years. And I got a phone call one time. It was in November of 2003. They came back from their retreat and they had made a decision that they wanted to hire a full-time producer on staff. Okay. I've been at Post Central about 7 years. I was brought on there to build that department. That I was the director of client services. So I knew all the agencies, I knew all the producers. My job was to just generate work, review storyboards and scripts, and help people get their jobs through the house. So we meet for coffee, and it was nice because we hadn't seen each other in a while. And they were saying, we really feel like we've reached the point in our agency where we want to bring on somebody full time.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm taking notes, and I'm thinking like, okay. So when we're all done, I said, all right, well, let me think about this. I'll think of some people maybe I can send your way, and hopefully it works out, and I can find you somebody that would be a good fit. And Chris said,
no.
What are you talking about?
To you.
We want you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I have a job.
Yeah.
And I said, and I already had that job. I said, no, I don't. No, I'm not interested. And I really wasn't.
Wow.
And so Chris kept coming around, and we talked. And it's not that I didn't really want the job.
Yeah.
But I had so much respect for them. I go back to Home Styles. They were innovators. In 1994, I believe, that was the year Chris and Kevin invested in the first edit system. Nobody did that. Yeah. But for the ability to be able to control the edit in-house, I know. I sold edit time.
Yeah.
I know what it's like when you need more time.
I'm sure.
Right? We're all behind closed doors going ching ching, and they're going, oh my gosh, this is costing me money.
A fortune.
So they brought it in-house. And I thought, there's and they went from being this small little shop to having clients like Cooper Vision, Harris RF Communications, Xerox. Xerox was my biggest client when I worked for myself. And I thought, there's something going on over there.
Yeah.
That
some positive momentum.
I feel like I have another opportunity to build a department that didn't exist. And I can tell you this, if I was replacing a producer, I would not have come.
Sure.
But to be able to bring what I know, and at the time I thought I knew everything, and I didn't. But there was just something interesting about going, all right, I was a little bored at Post Central. The department was sort of running itself.
Yeah.
I was very proud of it. And I thought, okay, I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
And so I came in April of 2004. So it took about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Chris would come to my office and close my door.
Wear you down.
And he wore me down, right? So, but it was good because we kept having conversations, and I thought, no, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So, but the reality hit in really quickly. Uh, we were working on projects here of budgets that I had never worked on before, especially early days with Dick's Sporting Goods when we did everything for them. So that was a learning experience. The travel involved. I went to Post Central because when I was worked for myself, and prior to that, I traveled a lot.
Yeah.
I had 3 little kids, and I thought, I really need a break.
Yeah.
So 7 years of being home. So my first day on the job here, I didn't even report here. I flew to California and worked on a TV commercial with Robbie and creative director at the time. My 1-year anniversary, I was on an airplane flying to California to meet up with Chris.
Yes.
And I realized it was my anniversary date. I went back to my calendar and I realized I had traveled 90 days in 1 year, 3 months. I was gone. So when Chris picked me up at the airport, I said to him, I was like, we have to talk.
Yeah.
This has got to settle down a little bit.
It's funny you say that too, because, when I was a kid, and there was a lot of production happening specifically in California. It was a thing for a couple of years where you guys would go kind of post up for a couple of months. But I think those years were full of some really fulfilling and amazing work. And so I'd be curious to know, like, I guess in the totality of the time you've been here, what's your favorite stuff that you've worked on, and maybe some of it was during that time?
Some of it was during that time. Obviously, the Dick's Sporting Goods kind of built this place to a certain point. I really enjoyed that work. One, it's sports, it's fun, golf, baseball, running. The locations were fun. It was a lot of work, though. It was a ton of work, but fulfilling work. And I thought it was good work. And I was very proud of that because at that point, we were the only agency production company, if you will, working for them. So everyone saw it. Everyone knew we did it. It was good.
Yeah.
But I'm also extremely proud of the work that we've done for Canandaigua National Bank, stuff we've done for Cooper Vision back in the day. Xerox, always near and dear to my heart. I mean, I built my company on Xerox. And so we got to do some really good video work for Xerox.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah.
It's been really good. I think some of the work that we've done, it has taught me to work the same, whether I have $500,000 or $5,000. We can do anything for anybody.
Right.
If you kind of just discuss what the expectations were.
Yeah, we scale our approach.
Yeah, the work we've done with the insurance companies through, Mass Mutual, John Hancock, MetLife Bank at the time. I've built a wonderful network of resources. I always feel ready if something comes at me to kind of go like, oh, I think I'm going to call them or whatever. So it's been very, very, very fulfilling.
That's great. Yeah. I got a glimpse into some of the bigger insurance stuff that we did when I first joined, however many, eight-ish years ago.
I remember.
And I loved that stuff. We were doing a ton of DRTV at the time, just direct marketing for them. And still like long format, lots of shots, lots of different concepts because we were doing so much creative testing.
Exactly.
And I always thought that was so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. It was a good time. It was the subject for what it was for the subject matter. I think we made them very interesting. And again, I will take it back to Flynn, that we sort of created what I see a lot now of.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's as good as the work that we were doing for them.
Yeah.
I can see certain things where I'd be like, I would have never cast her. That's the wrong kitchen for this demographic, right?
Well, right. It was very well thought through. I mean, every tiny detail was sort of not agonized over, but thought through in a big kind of way.
You had to, because this was, we were talking about final expense life insurance. We're talking about, people spending, very little amount to try to get something for that.
Yeah.
And so, we were shooting just outside the production zone of New York City. And you go to these beautiful homes. And I needed the room to work, but we needed to make the room small. Right? You know what I'm saying? You kind of compress the room. You put people in the corner. You kind of take this big, huge kitchen and you sort of make it a nice, modest kitchen. And believable that these people live in this home. Right down to the casting, right down to the wardrobe. And that's the challenge. That's what keeps it interesting.
Right. Absolutely.
And they were good. They were very effective.
Oh, I think so too. You know, we often talk about it, and you mentioned Robbie McGee earlier. We talk about how that formula is something that a lot of other, insurance companies follow now. And I know we like to think ourselves as a bit of a trendsetter in that space, but I think there's some truth to it.
There's a lot of truth to it.
Pat us on the back for that one.
Yeah. And I don't think that Robbie will say like, they took our spots verbatim. Well, that's not true, but they definitely took that concept. Sure. They took that scenario, they took that backstory and tried to make something of it, but I don't think as well as we did.
Yeah, I would agree with you. In terms of any other, memorable experiences in the last couple of decades, like anything fun that you would want to share from your time here? I can see you smirking. Are you going to tell do you have something on the tip of your tongue?
No. Okay. Spent a lot of time. No, I mean, I had a ball. Yeah. It sound like I'm leaving.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do I not know something, John?
No. It's been great. Chris was a wonderful, wonderful mentor. He's Chris is Chris, and we have a ton of laughs. We can just kind of finish each other's sentences. But he was great when I came here because, again, like I said, I thought I knew everything. Like, I've had that job, and I came here and went, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, in certain areas, I'm like, this is bigger than anything I've ever worked on before.
A little imposter syndrome.
Yeah, really. We're probably arrogant and cocky, really. But he was just like, no, we'll get through it, and you learn it, and you kind of think, okay, well, this isn't totally different. It's just grander.
Right.
But we've had plenty of great times. When you work in production and you work with lots of people in close quarters for long periods of time, there's a lot of memories, a lot of laughs, a lot of good times, because you're kind of all shoulder to shoulder. You're doing it together.
Yep.
And when you see the final results and you're very proud of it, it's exhausting. It can get a little contentious. There's some tempers and power struggles, but at the end of the day, you're all kind of marching towards that one final goal of just delivering great work that your client is going to be proud of, but that we're also going to be proud of as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Katie.